Music for Gathering is a little different today because we have a guest pianist. So my invitation is to take a breath and listen to Martin Manley. And since you're going to be sitting down for an hour plus, if you feel like getting up and having a stretch, this would be a great time to do it. Just feel the music in your body. If you're so moved, it's okay to sit and listen. And it's okay to get up and move. If you're so moved. And if you're really feeling it, it's okay to get up and dance. Thank you, Martin. Welcome, everybody, to this first Sunday in spring. Yeah. I want to welcome you to the First Unitarian Church of San Jose, where our mission is, and I quote, bound together by our commitment to making love visible, we gather to deepen our spirits, to work for justice, and to create one sacred family. So whoever you are, wherever you came from, whomever you love, whatever your identity, you're welcome here. We believe every person is a sacred part of one life we all share. If you're new, please talk to any of us after the service in the social hour in Hattie Porter Hall, where you will also find a welcome table to get more information about this church and our UU denomination. If you need a listening ear, you'll also find a pastoral associates table where you can light a candle for someone or something in your heart. My name is Rick Merritt, and I'm delighted to be your worship leader today. I want to extend a special welcome to the person who has been playing piano for us for Music for Gathering. Martin Manley is a retired Silicon Valley engineer, originally from Sheffield, England, who for the past many years has led a working jazz band called At Jazz. That's ampersand jazz. I had the pleasure to hear them at a wine bar outside of Saratoga last summer. They rock. I met Martin at Kaiser Santa Clara, where he volunteers to play music on Thursdays from 2 to 4 o'clock in the medical center there. Beautiful building with a big atrium. And I play at 4 to 6, so that's how we met. And when Martin told me that he was a UU and had given a talk on jazz and music and spirituality at the Palo Alto and the Sunnyvale fellowships, I said, oh, geez. I'd ask him if he'd come to this church. And hallelujah, he said yes. We'll hear Martin's thoughts on music and jazz and spirituality later on in the service, and you'll have a chance to meet him and talk to him, learn more about his band, and you can get copies of the newly released CD, Lizard Skin, from him. If you bought some CDs? Okay, he's got the CDs. Now let's say hello to folks on Zoom. Can we say hello to folks on Zoom? While the camera pans the room. Oh, here's the Zoomers. Hello, Zoomers. And more still arriving. And let us say hello to them if you pan the room. There you go. I see it happening now. All right. Announcements. Breaking news. As of this morning, and the latest contribution to our stewardship campaign, we are now at 100% of our goal. Our senior minister, the Reverend Matthew McHale, predicted that we might exceed our goal, which is still possible because in Hattie Porter Hall in the social hour, Steve Madden will be at the stewardship table, and you can be the one who helps us exceed our goal. Do it. Also, after the service next Sunday, we'll hold elections. And if you can't be here to vote, and we really hope you can be here in person to vote, if you can't, you can get an absentee ballot by emailing nominatingcommittee@sanjoseuu.org. And there's more information on that in the weekly all-church email, or you can see me afterwards if you need it. Well, the theme of today's service is music and spirituality. In our meditation time, we'll explore how music can calm us. And I think we all could use some calming these days. After Martin's talk, he'll play one of his compositions called Albert's Strut. You can use that time to explore whatever body movement feels right for you. Maybe tap your feet. Maybe stand and sway. Or if you're so moved, dance on the labyrinth. Whatever's right for you. And it's perfectly okay if you remain seated and listen. I totally get it. Personally, I used to hate dancing. I avoided my high school prom. I thought I had 2 left feet. Thanks to some practices similar to the ecstatic dances that happen here on some Friday nights, I discovered that music could help me let go of my self-judgments so I could move more spontaneously. It was scary, but I also found I could step into a freedom and a joy that was new for me. Today, we'll also hear in our Story for All Ages a folk tale adapted by Olga Loya about how music can remind us of who we are. May you find some music in the next hour that moves you and reminds you in a deeper way of who you are. And speaking of music, let's sing number 151 in the gray hymnal, I Wish I Knew How. We'll sing all 4 verses, and they should appear on the screen. Please rise as you are willing and able, and let's sing it like we mean it.
Starting anew, though
sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. And I sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Thank you, Martin. You may be seated. And now I'd like to invite Phoenix Star, who celebrated a birthday yesterday, to come up and light our chalice, the symbol of our UU faith. Those on Zoom can type into the chat where you're lighting your real or virtual chalice. We light this chalice as a symbol of the living fire of our breath that dances in our hearts like a song of the one life we all share. Now, Fee, I invite you to light a candle for our land acknowledgement. We light this candle in recognition of the Tamian and Muwekma Ohlone indigenous peoples who were the first humans to inhabit and sustain this land, thousands of years before settler colonizers arrived. We honor the resilience of these indigenous peoples in the face of devastating harm. And we lift up the resilience of their neighboring tribe to the south, the Amamutsan tribal band, with whom we are now working to preserve their sacred land of Huristak and to ensure that their culture continues to thrive. Thank you. And now I'll invite you to rise for our affirmation, which you'll find in your order of service and should also be appearing on the screen. We say it in English and Spanish for two of the many languages spoken in this valley, in this big wide world. And though I think we all know it, I'll wait until it appears on the screen. This is a good moment to be grateful for our Zoom hosts and our AV hosts who do really complex work that I couldn't do myself. And remember to breathe. And we'll say a prayer for the tech gods. Okay, let's do a test of our memory. You ready? On 3. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls will grow into harmony with the divine. This to be covenant with one another. El amor es la doctrina de Iglesia, la búsqueda seated. Now I welcome all children and youth and the young at heart and agile of body to come down into the center of the labyrinth for a story from Olga Loya.
Well, I am very happy to be here. I haven't told stories for a long time here. It's just so fun. The story is called La Cucarachita, the little cockroach. Come in, sit down. I heard this story many years ago when I was at a storytelling festival in Guadalajara. And when I came home, I couldn't quite remember it all because there was a lot of storytelling going on. So I started researching it. I found many, many versions of this story from Puerto Rico, from Mexico, from Cuba, Afghanistan, all kinds of places. And from that, then I began to work on my own version. And this is my version that I came out with it. Cucarachita did not like the way she looked. She looked in the mirror and she said, "Ay, soy tan fea. I'm so ugly." Her mother said, "But Cucarachita, you are pretty." "No, Mama, I'm not pretty. You just say that because you're my mother." She spent all of her time in front of the mirror, moaning and groaning. "Ay, no me gusta mi pelo demasiado rizado. I don't like my hair, it's too curly. Y no me gustan mis pestañas. I don't like my eyelashes, they're too short. Y no me gusta mi boca. I don't like my mouth, it's too small. No me gusta mi ropa. I don't like my clothes. Y soy tan bajita. I'm so short." Oh, she would go over her everywhere, moaning and groaning, looking in the mirror and groaning. And one day she was walking along, moaning and groaning as usual, and she found a little coin purse. And inside the coin purse were $5 silver. She went around and asked if it belonged to anybody. Nobody knew anything about it. So she took that first silver dollar and she bought herself a peluca, a wig. It was long and straight, and when she met people, she'd run her fingers through her hair and she'd say, "Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Y qué estás haciendo? What are you doing?" She looked in the mirror and she'd say, "Me gusta mi peluca, I like my wig, pero no me gustan mis pestañas. I don't like my eyelashes." So what do you think she bought with her second dollar? Pestañas pasas. They were so long and so strong she could hold a pencil in them. And when she met people, ella agitaba sus pestañas. She would flutter her eyelashes, and you can do that when you want to. She'd say, "Hola, hola." And she'd look in the mirror and she'd say, "Me gusta mi peluca, me gustan mis pestañas pasas, pero no me gusta mi boca. I don't like my mouth, it's too small." So what do you think she bought with her third dollar? Lipstick. She painted her mouth nice and big. And when she would say goodbye to somebody, ella soplaba besos. She would blow kisses. She'd say, "Adios." And you can do that with me too. She'd say, "Adios, adios." She'd look in the mirror and she'd say, me gusta mi peluca, mis pestañas pasas, mi boca pintada. Pero no me gusta mi ropa. I don't like my clothes. So what do you think she bought with her fourth dollar? Clothes. She bought herself a vestidito con pajaritos, a little dress with birds. And she was happy, except she still had a problema. What was her problem? Too short. So what do you think she bought with her fifth dollar? Aha, tacones altos. And she was walking down the road. She was all dressed up, walking down the road, and she was feeling pretty good. And there was Gato, cat, and he was guapo, black fur, yellow mysterious eyes. He leaned back, he looked at her, and he said, "Meow. Cucarachita, eres tan bonita, ¿por qué no te casas conmigo? Cucarachita, you are so pretty, why don't you marry me?" ¿Y cómo bailará y cantará nuestra noche? And how you dance and sing at our dance? Oh, pues yo bailaré y cantaré así. I will dance and sing like this. Everybody put your arms up. We're going to make the most terrible cat sounds. Ready? Meow, meow, meow. No, no. No me casaré contigo, me asustaré. I would not marry you, I would be afraid. And Mr. Cat, he went down the road, he was sad, but she was feeling good. She's walking down the road, and there was Señor Perro, Mr. Dog. And he was handsome too. Brown fur, big brown eyes. He leaned back, he looked at her, and he said, "Yip, yip, yip, yip. Cucarachita, eres tan bonita, ¿por qué no te casas conmigo? Cucarachita, you are so pretty, why don't you marry me? ¿Y cómo bailará y cantará en esa boda? And how will you dance and sing at our wedding? Oh, yo bailaré y cantaré así. I will dance and sing like this. Put your arms out carefully. And we're going to howl. Ready? Oh, nunca! Never, never, never. No me casaré contigo. I would not marry you. And poor dog, he went down the road with his tail between his legs. And Cucarachita, she's walking along. And there's Señor Ratoncito, Mr. Mouse. He was guapo too. Gray fur, little pointy nose, little black hat on his head. And he said, squeak, 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 squeak. Cucarachita, eres tan bonita, ¿por qué no te casas conmigo? ¿Y cómo bailará y cantará nuestra noche? Oh, pues yo cantaré y bailaré así. Cucarachita, eres tan bonita. Cucarachita, mi amor. Cucarachita, you are so pretty. Cucarachita, my love. And oh, she liked that song. She said, sí, yo me caso contigo. I will marry you. They were going back to her house, and suddenly she thought, oh, I cannot keep on my peluca, my wig, and my pestañas falsas, my false eyelashes, and my boca pintada, my painted mouth, and my vestido con los pajaritos, and my dress with little birds, and my tacones altos. He's going to see me. What should I do? Well, she decided. When they got back to her house, she took him into the kitchen. She gave him a big taza de café, a cup of coffee. She went to the bathroom, locked the door, and then she took off the peluca. She took off the pestañas falsas. She rubbed off the lipstick. She left on the dress. She took off the tacones altos. And she was just going out, and she looked at herself in the mirror. She never looked at herself because she didn't like the way she looked, and she was surprised. Her hair was now in soft curls. And without those old lashes, her eyes were big and brown. And her mouth, it was small, but perfectly formed. Ooh, she liked what she saw. But what was Ratoncito going to say? She was scared. She went out to the kitchen, and he looked at her from one side. He looked at her from the other side. He said, Cucarachita, ven el espejo. Come look in the mirror. They went, and they looked at themselves in the mirror, and he said, Cucarachita, you were pretty before, but now you are bellísima, beautiful. And she looked in the mirror. She looked at him. She looked in the mirror. She smiled, and she said, Yo sé, I know. Ratoncito and la Cucarachita were married in time, and they lived a long and happy life. Now I want to teach you the song, so I'm going to say the words, and you say after me, okay? Cu, ca, ra, chi, ta. Eres tan bonita. Cu, ca, ra, chi, ta, mi, amor. So I'm going to teach you the song. I'm going to sing the song. You sing back, okay? Here we go. Cucarachita, cucarachita, eres tan bonita. Eres tan bonita. Cucarachita, cucarachita, mi amor. Mi amor. So now I'm going to ask you to stand, and we're going to sing and sway. Your chest, you're dancing, and we're going to ready, begin. Cucarachita, eres tan bonita. Cucarachita, mi amor. You sound lovely. Everybody sit down. I have one more thing more I want you to do. Now, a lot of people are like La Cucarachita. They look in the mirror and they say, oh, God, I wish my hair was curlier. Oh, I wish it was straighter. My eyes are too big. My eyes are too small. Why are my teeth like that? All those things. So I want to ask you to do is I want you to turn to your neighbor and tell them one thing that you like about yourself. Everybody do that now. One thing you like about yourself. And the very last thing that I'd like to ask you to do, and the very last thing that I'd like you to do, tonight, when you're brushing your teeth and you look into the mirror, tell yourself one thing you like about yourself. Because if you can't be kind to ourselves, we cannot be kind to anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. I hope this is the first of many more Olga stories, because I want to hear them. And there's one more song to sing that we always sing at this time, and can you put up the slide for it? Give us an A or C, I guess it is there in Martin, as you scramble to the piano. We have some motions for this one too, right? Do you remember them? Help me out here. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace. We send you off to your classes now. Thank you. And thank you, Olga. So now Sally Cooperrider will join Martin Manley to play Morning by Claire Fisher as we accept the contributions that help the ministries of this congregation grow and thrive. Will the worship hosts please take the morning offering? Now that's a good morning. For the work of this church, which is making love visible in all we say and do, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Our reading today comes from liquidmind.com, the website of keyboard player Chuck Wild. Chuck Wild has had a varied music career, first as a member of a new wave band called Missing Persons, then as a songwriter and session keyboardist for artists including Frank Zappa and Michael Jackson. During a stressful period in the late 1980s, while he was helping score the television series Max Headroom, remember that one? In addition to stress from long hours of work, he also lost, in a short span of time, a large number of friends, family members, and acquaintances to AIDS and cancer. As a form of personal therapy, he began composing slow, tranquil, new age, and ambient pieces, which he later released under the name Liquid Mind. I originally wrote the music to be of service to myself, my friends, and my family, Wild writes on his website. When I discovered that this music was effective in helping to relax while recovering from my own anxiety and panic attacks, I decided in 1993 to release it to the public. Last month, on Valentine's Day, Wild released his 15th Liquid Mind album. The ultimate compliment to me is that people fall asleep to my music, he writes. I'm a shameless advocate of life in the slow lane. For many years, I worked 18 or more hours a day, 7 days a week. Your body will always exact a toll for such abuse. Composing slow music helps me find peace and quiet, to get back in touch with the fact that I am responsible for the pace of my own life, and to help me unify body, mind, and spirit. So now I invite you to take an off-ramp to the slow lane with a meditation of about 6 minutes. As we listen to one of Wild's Liquid Mind songs, this one's called Mindfulness. Sit comfortably and take a few deep breaths. Let your eyes close or your gaze soften. And keep your attention on your breath and the music. If you feel any tension in your body, maybe the muscles of your face, your neck, your shoulders, let your breath and the music massage that place. Relax and breathe. If you find your mind wanders, it's not unusual. Just come back to a focus on your breath and the music. If you find a concern, a joy or a sorrow keeps coming to mind, speak it out loud in just a word or phrase, as we do in our embracing meditations here. Speak it out now and let it go. Now, I invite you to bring your attention back into this sanctuary. under this dome, or if you're online, the broader dome of the shared sky we're all under, where we're all held in love by this community. And let's sing a song. Please join me in singing number 100 in the Great Hymnal, Peace Like a River. We'll sing all 6 verses. I think you may know the song. I'll call out the verses so you don't have to have a hymnal. They'll probably appear out here. And let's rise and sing. I've got peace like a seated.
Good morning. Is this working? Good. Okay, jazz music and spirituality. Heavy. Imagine having a conversation with an alien being who had just arrived on Earth and was curious about various human art forms. And you try and explain. Representative sculpture and painting should be fairly easy. Novels, plays, and movies, likewise. How would you explain music? There are these things called notes, which are air vibrations that have a specific frequency. Notes can be created on different instruments, and each one adds different higher frequency overtones, so people can distinguish the same note played on a piano versus a violin. You could start that way. Then, okay, that's a single note. What happens if we go to multiple notes? if we play multiple notes together, we can create something that's either pleasing or displeasing. So we start with a single note and then add something that's got a 50% higher frequency. That's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. What happens if we go up double the frequency? Well, it's sort of higher, but it's sort of the same note. What happens if we go up a semitone from that? Yow! So that's displeasing. What happens if we add a few more notes in with those two displeasing notes? That's okay. So it's a little hard to explain why that is. Everybody feels that reaction, but why is that? So we've done notes, we've done combinations of notes to create a chord. What about a sequence of chords one after the other? It can have an emotional effect. So if we take something very simple, now you know where this is going. It feels obvious that it needs to go there. And it feels like it's coming to some kind of resolution. It's going home in some way. Now we can take those same root notes and go into a minor key and end up with something kind of different. Now, that's very different emotional effect. How do you explain that? So beyond that, we can talk about rhythm. So the rhythm is the sequence of notes in time. And if you change the rhythm of the notes, the emotional feel changes yet again. And if you do it the right way, maybe you can even make people want to dance. One of the key aspects of jazz is its rhythmic swing. And to quote Duke Ellington, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Swing is very subtle and it's hard to illustrate, but let me try and do this. So let's take the tune, It Don't Mean a Thing, and imagine this is being played by a student of Mozart. So very straight, no swing. It's recognizable. Not very cool. If you add some swing, you might... Very different. Now, the differences in timing there are really subtle, but it has a huge effect on the way that people perceive it. Yo! Okay, won't do that again. I should have talked about feedback. Ooh. Okay, so let's talk about music. There are, of course, many different types of music, and each has its own beauty. Over my lifetime, I've developed a deepening love for jazz. Of course, it's hard to explain why you love one particular kind of music over another. For me, jazz perhaps represents the ultimate combination of harmonic complexity with rhythmic excitement. But the most exciting aspect of it, for me, is the opportunity for self-expression through improvisation. Now, jazz is the quintessential American art form. It was created by a fusion of complex African rhythms married to the complex harmonic principles of European music. As such, it's a direct offspring of the horrors of slavery. But we can perhaps take comfort in the fact that such an oppressed group of people were able to give birth to a beautiful and universally admired musical form. In the New World, the newly arrived enslaved people somehow were able to hold on tight to the rhythmic music patterns of their own history as a way of retaining their cultural identity in a strange land, and as a way to lift their spirits in the face of such difficult circumstances. As a side note, it's interesting to see that wherever the scourge of slavery touched the New World, there now exists a fantastic musical culture. Think of New Orleans, Cuba, Brazil, and the Caribbean. Each of them have different but really beautiful music based on that fusion. Okay, back to the piano again. I think I'll go the other way, so as not to have it. Fool me once. So traditionally, jazz takes some kind of tune, hopefully that people know, and then you establish the tune and then build new melodies over the harmonic structure, over the chords of that tune. So to take something that probably most people know is Autumn Leaves. So a jazz musician would establish that so you've got those chords in your ear and then try and create another tune on top of it. And in a typical jazz performance, the original tune, such as a standard like that, will be played at the beginning so that people have a frame of reference. You have that in your ear, you're kind of familiar with it. And then the players will take turns improvising a new melody over that chord structure. And then usually at the end, the original tune is played once again just to kind of bring everything to full circle. Now, the beauty and the terror of improvisation is that it's done in the moment. Sometimes you can hear a new melody line spring into your head a second before you need to play it, but other times it feels like you're sitting and watching your hands produce a stream of notes on their own. It's a little bit like watching a Ouija board generating words. It gets even more interesting when multiple musicians play together, as good jazz musicians are really listening to one another and responding in real time to what the others are playing. Some of the process of improvisation obviously reflects other aspects of creativity, such as the idea of flow. When you're improvising, you need to occupy an intermediate state of focus. If you stress up too much about what you're about to play, you'll get tense and mess it up. But if you space out and daydream, you'll either lose your place or play something very mechanical and boring. There's clearly a paradox about improvisation. You need to understand a great deal about music and harmonic theory in order to do it, and you need manual facility on the instrument. But as the bebop sax player Charlie Parker once said, you've got to learn your instrument, then you practice, 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 and then when you finally get up there on the bandstand, just forget about that and just wail. The key point is that you need to store all of that technical information and muscle learning in your brain, but you've then got to let go of it so that true creativity can take place. Now, that's easier said than done. Sometimes it works well, sometimes not so much. One problem can be that when you're practicing maybe that tune, you'll come up with some really nice sounding ideas for a new melody line, and that'll kind of stick in your head. And then it's very easy later on, if you're performing, you can kind of regurgitate those lines when you're supposed to be creating something new. A further pitfall is no matter what instrument you play, there are a certain sequence of notes that are mechanically easy to play on that instrument. And so it's very easy to fall into playing a melodical line that's easy for your fingers, rather than one that's true to the moment, whatever that means. In many ways, you can see the parallels to precepts underlying Buddhism. When you're improvising, the only moment that you have is now. You can't think back on what happened a moment ago, whether it was a mistake you made or whether it was an idea that you particularly liked. And you can't stress about a particularly difficult set of chord changes that are coming up right ahead, because if you do that, you'll mess up what you're doing right now. There's no time to think about the guy who cut you off in the traffic on the way to the gig. There's no time to think about how you're going to handle the meeting at work tomorrow. Now, when you play with other musicians and when everything is clicking, you have the opportunity to transcend your ego and become absorbed in the spontaneous collective generation of something new. Of course, there are many times it isn't like that, and instead you're getting upset because the bass player missed a note, or maybe you're worrying that your playing isn't up to the standard of the other musicians. There have been many books written about the relationship of music, improvisation, and spirituality, and we can get into some very murky waters here. Centuries ago, most serious Western music was created within the context of the Christian church, and it was taken as a given that masterpieces such as Handel's Messiah were divinely inspired. Nowadays, it's much less obvious. There are fabulous musicians of every faith imaginable. There are Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, plus agnostics and atheists. Much to my chagrin, one of my favorite jazz pianists, Chick Corea, was a prominent Scientologist who always made a big point of crediting L. Ron Hubbard as the source of his creativity. What am I supposed to make of that? More to the point, if music and improvisation is such good spiritual practice, how come so many of the great jazz musicians struggle with drug or alcohol problems? And even without those extremes, many of the greatest musicians are renowned for being total egotistical monsters. The same thing can be said of other great creative spirits, such as painters and writers. Picasso and Hemingway come to mind. Maybe there are two competing forces at play. The actual work of creating great music helps dissolve the ego, but the adulation that comes along with being seen as a famous artist boosts the ego and warps people's sense of self-importance. For me, I guess the source of all true creativity is being prepared to do the hard work of learning from what your many, many predecessors in the music have been able to create, and then synthesizing music from this that expresses something that's true to yourself, something that has meaning for you in particular. At its best, spontaneously creating music can bring me as close as I'm ever likely to get to flow and perfect mindfulness. At its worst, I can still make pleasant music for an audience while I worry about tomorrow's dentist appointment. Thank you very much.
So while now Martin plays one of his compositions, Albert's Strut, I invite you, if you are so moved, to move to the music. Find your own strut, whatever that might look like or feel like today. And maybe that's just sitting down and tapping your feet, or maybe it's getting up and swaying, or maybe it's dancing on this wonderful dance floor labyrinth that we have in front of us. You choose. He's going to play. Thank you, Martin. Don't go away. Give us one more song. Thanks, Martin, for that. That was fun. And now I invite you all to rise as you're willing and able for a final hymn. This Little Light, which I will call out the words for, just 3 verses. And kick us off, Martin. This little light. This little light of mine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Please stay standing. Please stay standing for the benediction, which Martin will offer us on this little. Oh, you got your lavalier. And I invite you to make a connection to people around you, take a hand or touch an elbow, and we'll send loving energy out to those on Zoom. Hit it, Martin.
Our benediction is the words of the great Dave Brubeck. Get out there and improvise and take chances.